Namaste, and welcome to our continuing series on the life divine with our beloved Ranga. We are on page 365, Brahman, Purusha, Ishvara. Beginning with the sentence, it is the reality, the self, that takes the position of the conscious being.
We will read out the summary of the previous paragraph so that we get
it's important that we do this.
Pardon?
It's very important that we do this.
Then we get the link.
Yes.
So in the previous paragraph, Srila has discussed the Sankhya philosophy. The Sankhya philosophy, there are 2 or 3 main points that they make very strongly. One is that there is Purusha and Prakriti. Purusha corresponds to consciousness and Prakriti corresponds to force, Shakti. Shakti is, in the Sankhya philosophy, inert, inconscient, unconscious if you want, and mechanical. Purusha is consciousness. It is conscious, but it does not act. It only permits the force to act, and then the force acts. Okay, this is one. Then the other point in the Sankhya philosophy is the 3 principles in the lower hemisphere: matter, life, and mind, which are governed by the principles of tamas, rajas, and sattva. Tamas corresponds to matter, where it is a principle of darkness and stability and no change. As far as possible, a permanent state of darkness. Rajas is the element of energy. It is the opposite of tamas. Tamas is the one that wants to stay put, whereas the rajas is the one that wants to move. It is not satisfied with only remaining. It wants to move. So it injects prana, life, into matter and creates the animal world. And there is finally sattva. Sattva corresponds to the mind, which is the instrument of illumination, knowledge. It may be semi-knowledge or it may be even part ignorance, part knowledge, but it's the beginning of knowledge. So this is the Sankhya philosophy. But in the Sankhya philosophy, Purusha is a conscious being, but it is the personal aspect of the conscious being. When human beings experience the Purusha consciousness, you feel yourself to be a person. You are not impersonal as in the self. You are not everywhere. Impersonality is not its mark. Okay? So this is, I'll read, with this small introduction, I'll read what he has said about the concept of Purusha and Prakriti is fully developed in the Sankhya philosophy. Purusha and Prakriti are eternally and fundamentally separate elements, though in relation with each other. They are not one, they are 2, but they cooperate and they have a relationship with each other. When both cooperate, like a lame man and a blind man, then there is creation. So, Purusha is compared to a man who has got eyes. He can see, he has knowledge, but he is lame. He can't move. Whereas Prakriti has got very strong legs, it can move, but blind, mechanical, no consciousness. So, how can the 2 cooperate to give a creation? The lame man sits on the shoulders of the blind man. Now, the lame man has got eyes, he can see and direct the blind man to move in a particular direction. So when they cooperate with each other, consciousness and force, creation is possible. You can cross a forest. Separately, they will not be able to cross the forest. But together, they can achieve, you can do what has to be done.
Now, today I read chapter 9 of Essays on the Gita. Sri Aurobindo goes in so deeply to the Sankhya philosophy.
Yes.
And it's not easy really to understand.
No, that's why I'm telling you that these are the two basic things.
Yes.
Just you can reduce it to a very simple statement. Purusha, Prakriti are consciousness and force.
Yes.
Consciousness is personal aspect, force is the impersonal aspect, and unconscious principle. It is just mere force. Like the wind is coming, there is no personality. Wind is not conscious. It is impersonal. So this, at the lower level of the lower hemisphere, at this level, Sankhya philosophy is valid. Okay? But in the spiritual planes of consciousness, the reality takes different stances. Okay? Sometimes the Purusha is not conscious at all. In the body, it becomes unconscious. Okay? Then it rises to the mental being, it is semi-conscious. When it goes to the self, above the mind, in the higher mind region, it is impersonal. There is no personality there. That's what he will discuss in the next para that we are going to read today. So, then when it goes even higher up, this person, Purusha person, starts realizing that he can be impersonal as well as personal. So there are different stages. So Purusha in the Sankhya philosophy is the personal aspect. When man realizes the Purusha aspect, he feels himself to be an individual. Okay? So,
Okay.
Purusha and Prakriti are eternally and fundamentally separate elements, though in relation with each other. When both cooperate, like a lame man and a blind man, there is creation. Purusha is consciousness. Prakriti is energy, inert, unconscious, mechanical. Prakriti uses matter as its basic substance to produce forms in which it develops life, sense, mind and intelligence. But intelligence, being part of nature, is inert, mechanical. The concept explains the causality, the regular laws in the physical universe. But Purusha, soul, lends its light of consciousness to Prakriti, and this gives the impression of consciousness, free will, choice to animals and men. But this is largely illusory. This is what we discussed also last time in detail, that you have no, the mind, life and body have no free will at all. It's an illusion of the ego. It's a machine, and the machine is being run by universal nature. And your soul is trapped in this machine. It has no power, it is sleeping. So when the soul awakes in this machine of body, mind, life, it can go up and feels itself to be free. There is no freedom for the machine. The machine, any machine, printing machine, car, okay, motorcycle, it will obey the command that you give it, just like in a computer. Okay, the computer, but if it has you start programming the computer to respond to certain things, you tell the computer, if I press 2 and I press plus and I press again 2, you give me the answer 4. I am telling you to do that. So that is what is programming. So this programming can go very far. It can go so far as what I sent you today. Okay? Yeah, it is surprising. And to continue what we did last time was this artificial intelligence we spoke of. So today what I have sent you, there is a man who is experimenting with a computer which is very well programmed. It has all the inputs are there from all over philosophies and all that. And he tells the computer, write me an essay combining the Chinese philosophy of Confucius and the Sermon on the Mount. And it does it in 3 seconds. And it's all correct. Because the input has been there from the information from the Confucius philosophy, and also the Sermon on the Mount has been put on the net. So it accesses these informations and immediately gives an essay of 4 pages. So if a machine can do that, that is what you are also doing. But you are doing it mechanically without knowing that you are doing it mechanically. That is what Sankhya philosophy tells you is a machine.
But you also have told us that Purusha and Prakriti become one at the highest level.
Not in the Sankhya philosophy.
There's the difference. Huh?
Not in the Sankhya philosophy. In the Advaita philosophy, they become one. That's why there is a difference between Advaita and Sankhya. Sankhya is valid at the lower hemisphere. Advaita is valid at the higher hemisphere. Theirs is a more comprehensive philosophy. Okay, so I have still not yet finished reading the summary of the previous one. We'll do it now. We came up to the lame man and the blind man. Okay, so this concept explains the causality and the regular laws in the physical universe. They follow definite laws. There is no freedom. Okay, so but Purusha, soul, lends its light of consciousness to Prakriti, and this gives the impression of consciousness, free will, choice to animals and men. But this is largely illusory. The Purusha is the conscious soul, and it lends its consciousness to body-mind life, just like the images being thrown on a silent screen. So if the screen is conscious, which is the body-mind life, it thinks that it is, I am producing all these images. Okay. So the moment the images are switched off, like in the physical world, what are the images we are making? The eyes are giving you images on your retina. The nose is giving you olfactory data and it being transmitted to the brain. The gustatory data is being sent to the brain. These are the images, the sense, the sounds from the olfactory nerves. They are going to the brain, and the brain is telling you what you are seeing and what you are not seeing. The brain is the computer part. It is accessing all this data and telling you what you are seeing. This is actually how it works. Okay, so then he's saying, but Purusha soul lends its light of consciousness to Prakriti, and this gives the impression of consciousness. You feel that you are free, you have a free will. This is what is happening. Because the soul is there and it is giving this. You can use my consciousness a little bit. Things like that. Okay, so. But this is largely illusory. Purusha and Prakriti are separate but work in tandem. They work together, involved in each other. Purusha can become free by detaching itself from the clutches of Prakriti. Very clear, your soul is trapped in this prison of body-mind life. It is there deep inside you, here. When it escapes, it realizes that I am not the body-mind life, I am free. Okay, that is mukti. It realizes that it is not the body-mind life. It actually stands above the head. You feel yourself standing above the head if you experience liberation. Alright, so he can become, but now he can become master, he can become Ishvara by refusing to be involved in matter. Earlier he was just giving permission to the body-mind life to do whatever it wants to do, because you have to gather experience. Only by experience can the soul grow. The soul is not divine to begin with. It is divine essentially, but it is sleeping. Just like the seed is essentially the tree, but not yet the tree. It is not developed. So that's what he's saying. Now it is not Sankhya philosophy anymore. Okay, he can become master, Lord, Ishvara by refusing to be involved in matter. By becoming independent of body, mind, and life, Purusha becomes conscious of itself and is liberated.
So, why would Purusha refuse to be involved in body, mind, and life?
Because you realize that you are free. In body, mind, life, you are not free. You realize when you go out, you realize that now you are free. You realize that you are not the doer of actions. The doer of actions is nature. We don't see that. But if the soul escapes from body, mind, life, it sees that I was not the doer. I am the non-doer. I am only the witness watching. I am consciousness, pure consciousness. That's it. This is one of the big experiences of the self. You realize that you are not the doer. And naturally, if you realize you are not the doer, you can't claim any results of your actions. So ego disappears. There is no ego in the self. Okay? Prakriti acts by the principles, three principles of Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. Sattva is the principle of light, balance, harmony, knowledge. Rajas is kinesis, energy, movement. Tamas, darkness, inertia, unintelligence. Okay? So, when the three are in unequal motion, there is creation. When the three are in equal proportion, there is silence, nivritti, quiescence, no creation. This is liberation, mukti for the soul. This is the Sankhya philosophy. Purusha is plural, conscious, personal. In the Sankhya philosophy, Purusha is actually only one in the Advaita philosophy because it goes higher up and sees the reality from another angle and another height. Okay? Then, Prakriti is single, impersonal, universal. All these concepts are found to be perfectly true in spiritual experience, but they need not be taken as final and the ultimate truth. Sankhya is valid at the lower levels, but it is not absolutely valid at the higher levels. It is not valid. It is valid up to a certain point. But they need not be taken as final. This is Ramza speaking. And the ultimate truth. We may go beyond these concepts and experience the following contrary facts. What is that? You can realize that Prakriti, though inconscient at the lower levels, is fully conscious and divine in the upper reaches of existence. This is the Advaita philosophy. Go beyond the Sankhya philosophy, go to a higher level and you start seeing that Prakriti can be conscious. There is consciousness in Prakriti. Okay? Purusha, though seemingly plural in ignorance, your Purusha, I am a Purusha, she is a Purusha, everybody is a Purusha. Consciousness. Your consciousness is not the same as hers. But when you go to another level of consciousness, another height, you see that essentially the consciousness is the same everywhere. Just like the 100 mangoes on a tree. Essentially they are one. You see the essentiality. Or they give another example. On a table, I have gold ornaments. I have a ring, I have a bracelet, I have a necklace, I have a nose ring, I have anklets, and I have also a chain. Okay? They are all different forms. So they are all separate. They are the many. But if I look carefully, I will see that they are all made of gold. That is a common thing. And I can melt down that necklace and make it into an anklet. These forms are not permanent. So the gold is a permanent thing. So the Purusha is the permanent thing, and if you go to a sufficiently high level, you see that the consciousness of everybody is the same. So that's why there is not plural Purushas, but one single Purusha who seems to be dividing himself into 7.5 billion at present human beings. Okay, so this is what he said in there. It's a revision of what we did last time actually. So, Purusha, though seemingly plural in ignorance, is experienced as the one, universal, which lays the foundation for a perfect unity and identity with all creatures. I can fully sympathize with you and I can know you fully because identity becomes possible. Your soul and my soul is the same. So I can easily identify myself with you at the higher level. In the Sankhya philosophy, no identification. Okay, so these apparently contradictory aspects are possible because Purusha and Prakriti are one, not eternally separate. The duality, and this is the not Sankhya philosophy, this is the Advaita philosophy. The duality and separateness are necessary for the creation at the material level, but their unity in the higher is a fact. So this is what he has said in the previous para. Now we will read the para that we have to read today. Okay? It is the reality, the self, that takes the position of the conscious being, regarding and accepting or ruling the works of its own nature. An apparent duality is created in order that there may be a free action of nature working itself out with the support of the spirit, and again a free and masterful action of the spirit controlling and working out nature. This duality is also necessary that the spirit may be at any time at liberty to draw back from any formation of its nature and dissolve all formation or accept or enforce a new or a higher formation. These are very evident possibilities of the spirit in its dealings with its own force, and they can be observed and verified in our own experience. They are logical results of the powers of the infinite consciousness, powers which we have seen to be native to its infinity. Purusha aspect and the Prakriti aspect go always together, and whatever status nature or consciousness force in action assumes, manifests or develops, there is a corresponding status of the spirit. In its supreme status, the spirit is a supreme conscious being, Purushottama, and the conscious force is his supreme nature, Para Prakriti. In each status of the gradations of nature, the spirit takes a poise of its being proper to the gradations in mind nature. Proper to that gradation. In mind nature, it becomes a mental being. In life nature, it becomes the vital being. In nature of matter, it becomes a physical being. In supermind, it becomes the being of knowledge. In the supreme spiritual status, it becomes a being of bliss and pure existence. In us, in the embodied individual, it stands behind all as the psychic entity, the inner self supporting the other formulations of our consciousness and spiritual existence. The Purusha, individual in us, is cosmic in the cosmos, transcendent in the transcendence. The identity with the self is apparent, but it is the self in its pure, impersonal, personal status of a spirit in things and beings. Impersonal because undifferentiated by personal quality, personal because it presides over the individualizations of self in each individual, which deals with the works of its consciousness force, its executive force of self nature, in whatever poise is necessary for that purpose. So, very big para, and it's very clear, but it's hidden behind the words. So, we'll have to look at the words and then see what he's saying. Before we proceed, we give an overall picture of it, then we go into each sentence. Okay. So, what he's saying is, at the highest level, there is the supreme reality which is experienced as three, but essentially they are one. They are not three. They are a triune force. Sat, substance or existence. Chit, which is also force, which is consciousness. And Ananda, which is bliss. So when you experience Satchidananda, you will feel that it is a conscious substance which is also got force in it, and it is full of enjoyment. It is full of Ananda. But as it manifests, we have to apply the principle of the one becoming the many. So Satchidananda, which is one at the highest level, splits and becomes different. So consciousness becomes many consciousnesses. Force becomes different types of forces. Ananda also can become different types of Anandas. Consciousness becoming different types. Your consciousness, her consciousness, our consciousness, all different. But there is also a difference. The animal consciousness is different from the human consciousness, and the human consciousness is different from the yogic consciousness, and that of the avatar. They are all different. So depending at which level you are, there is a relation between Purusha and Prakriti which determines where you are. And if Purusha takes a particular stance, Prakriti takes a stance which is proportionate to that. It goes on like that. At the highest level, they are equal to each other. In the self is conscious, Prakriti is inactive. It is held back. It is force, but it is held back. In matter, Purusha has gone to sleep. There is no consciousness in matter. So it seems. But it is actually energy, Prakriti, which is holding Purusha down. So this is the proportion as it goes up. So between these planes, you can see very clearly that Purusha and Prakriti are inversely proportional to each other. In matter, Prakriti full, energy, the atomic power is there, moving. But there doesn't seem to be any consciousness, but there is a consciousness which is hiding inside. Okay? And it is trying to come out. When it tries to come out, it comes out first in the form of life. Then mind. Then we go above the mind, consciousness becomes full. Self, you know that you are conscious. But you are in an immutable condition. There is no force there. You are just watching, you are a witness. And the force is not there. You have held the force is there but held back. So this is the proportion. So consciousness full, Prakriti zero if you want. Not really zero, but as I said, 0.00001 because the potentiality is there. Okay. Then you go to the third level, they are equal to each other. And you realize that Purusha and Prakriti, consciousness and force, are not two separate things at all. They are essentially one. That's what you realize. That's what he's saying in this paragraph that we have just read. Okay? It is the reality, the self, that takes the position of the conscious being. Conscious being, Purusha. Conscious being, personal consciousness, and also it is a Purusha. Okay? And this Purusha is regarding, accepting, or ruling. When it is regarding, it is the self. I am only looking. Regarding, you read in the sense of the French word, regarder. Okay, just watching. I am just watching. I am not doing anything. But there is another one. It can also realize that I am accepting. Okay, I accept. There is a relation between me and my body, mind, life. There is a relationship. I am accepting that. Okay, or I am ruling. I am master of it. The mastery comes at the highest level. The accepting comes at the middle level, and in the spiritual planes of consciousness at the lower level, you are only regarding. You are a witness. This is what he is saying. It is this reality which is Satchidananda, which is taking this stand. At each level, it becomes a different stand. Okay? So, it is the reality, Satchidananda, the self, that takes the position of the conscious being, regarding and accepting or ruling. It can take three different stances. Okay? Ruling what? The works, that is Prakriti, of its own nature. It's its own nature which it is separated, and it is either looking at its own nature or it is accepting what it is doing calmly, quietly, not rejecting, but also it can become master. These are the three words. Okay? And what is it looking at? The works of its own nature. And what are the works of its own nature? Your body, your mind, and your life. It is a working. Okay? An apparent duality is created in order that there may be a free action of nature working itself out with the support of the spirit. And again a free and masterful action of the spirit controlling and working out nature. So they are separated, and this is interesting because then the possibility of various creations is possible. See, in the plant world, you have male and female aspects also. Na? There are papaya trees, there are male and female.
Oh, yes.
And
yes.
there has to be, for pollinization is also there. So these two principles are working separately and combining, so that there can be any number of combinations possible. Asexual reproduction is possible at the cellular level.
Yeah, it's very interesting because now they are having intergeneric hybrids, things that we would never think they would cross, are now actually crossing.
Yeah. You can do this by grafting also, no? You can,
Yeah, you can graft onto a stock,
Yeah.
a scion.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then you'll have a combination of...
Yes, and you can graft many different scions on one
That's
plant. That's how they get these multicolored bougainvilleas,
Yes,
by grafting.
yes. They have even produced a tree, one tree with different types of fruits on it.
Yes.
That also is possible. Because the two are separate. So the combination of these gives you all these possibilities.
Yes. They have avocado trees now with 6 or 7 different avocados on the tree.
Yes, that's right. An apparent duality is created in order that there may be a free action of nature. Nature is going on producing different things, working itself out with the support of the spirit. Whatever nature is doing here, it is with the permission of the spirit. Yes, I am allowing you to do this. Okay, so, and again, a free and masterful action of the spirit controlling and working out nature. So both the things are there. This is in the one chapter he has discussed this fully. Okay, so this duality is also necessary that the spirit may be at any time at liberty to draw back from any formation of its nature and dissolve all formation, or accept or enforce a new or a higher formation. So let's look carefully at this, what he's saying. This duality is also necessary that the spirit, the soul in you, I'll go only for a human being. Then it becomes very clear what he's saying. Okay. This duality is also necessary for the spirit, your soul, may be at any time at liberty to draw back from any formation of its nature. Formation of nature, your body, mind, life. And the spirit can come out anytime it wants. That's what he's saying. Okay? But anytime it wants, this wanting has to be a very strong and persistent wanting. Otherwise it can't come out. That's spiritual experience. You come out. Okay? But you have the freedom to do that. It is not bound to remain a prisoner in the body, mind, life forever. That's what he's saying.
So when Mother met Madame Theon, she could do any of these things. She had the kinetic force to bring her slippers.
Yes.
She could absorb a fruit within her.
She was master of the Prakriti.
Ah,
That's right.
okay.
But the mastery is not full. But even then, all these powers are very surprising. You can do all those things, but the power becomes absolute at the supramental level. What Madame Theon was doing was relatively limited so far as its possibilities are concerned. She would bring her sandals to herself. She would make the table move away towards a person who was very offensive, a government official. He never came back to bother them. Yeah, she could leave jasmine flowers on mother's bed in a closed room. Mother came one day and opened her room and saw that there were jasmine flowers on her bed. Okay. And it was a closed room. It couldn't be done, but she did it. This duality is also necessary that the spirit may be at any time at liberty to draw back from any formation of its nature. I have restricted myself to explain this only with a human being. But the spirit is there in a stone, but there it is not free to become free at any time it wants. But man onwards, it is free to do what it wants. In the lower level, below man, the spirit is a prisoner. But with man, is a choice to become free anytime it wants from its own formation. Okay, that's what he's saying. And when it becomes free, what can it do? Okay, dissolve all formation. It can get rid of all formation. It can say, I am not interested in the body, mind, life. Okay. It can also dissolve any formation it has made. Think of a forest fire. It is eliminating the forest. Think of a tsunami, okay, or an earthquake. It is eliminating what it has created. Its own formations it is destroying. That's what he's saying in a very general way. You have to give examples to yourself to understand what he's saying. Okay, so and dissolve all formation or accept and enforce a new or higher formation. So he is referring to spiritual consciousness. When you are above, you can accept what you are doing, okay, certain things. Suppose you see some good qualities in you, you accept them. But suppose you see something which you don't like in yourself, like anger or greed, you have the power to dissolve that to a certain extent. The entire power comes only at the higher level. But this is what he's saying. And you can also accept or enforce a new and higher formation. You can change your mind, you can change your vital, you can even change your body like Sri Aurobindo did.
Yes.
Exactly. Okay. Enforce a new or a higher formation. These are very evident possibilities of the spirit in its dealings with its own force. It is its own force that it can do that. But at this level, it does not seem to be its own force. Force is dominating. At a lower level, it is like that. At the higher level, full power to do what it wants with its own force. Okay, so they can be observed and verified in our own experience. Spiritual experience, these things can be seen. That's what he's saying. They are logical results of the powers of the infinite consciousness. Powers which we have seen to be native to its infinity. Because it is infinite to consciousness, it has got all these powers. It can do what it wants. You saw that those three qualities he gave you, it can take any stance it wants. It can limit itself or expand itself. Okay, all these possibilities are there. Or it can diminish its own power or increase its own power. With these three qualities, it can create infinitely. The Purusha aspect and the Prakriti aspect go always together, and whatever status nature or consciousness force in action assumes, manifests or develops, the spirit is the supreme conscious being, Purushottama.
There is a corresponding status of the spirit.
I read that again.
Yeah.
The Purusha aspect and the Prakriti aspect go always together, and whatever status nature or consciousness force in action assumes, manifests or develops, there is a corresponding status of the spirit. They always, whatever spirit is, there is a corresponding movement to that. That we saw just now, inversely proportional to each other. Okay? In its supreme status, at the highest level, the spirit is a supreme conscious being, Purushottama. And the consciousness force is his supreme nature, Para-Prakriti. At the lower level, they seem to be different. At the highest level, he is the master, the consciousness is Purushottama, and nature is his own power. It's not a power which is separate. Here it seems to be separate, but there it is his own power. He can do what he wants with it. That is why you have to go to the supramental level to be able to use your power fully to change whatever you want below. That is why Sri Aurobindo was concentrating on the supermind. Otherwise, evolution will not go to the next level. That's the whole point. Para-Prakriti. There is a Para-Prakriti, higher Prakriti, and a lower Prakriti, which is unconscious and mechanical. At the higher level, this force is fully conscious of itself. Okay? In each status of the gradations of nature, what are these gradations of nature? Inconscience, subconscious, matter, life, mind, higher mind, illumined mind, intuitive mind, overmind, supermind. These are the gradations of nature, where consciousness is slowly increasing or decreasing downwards. Force is increasing or decreasing downwards. Ananda also increasing upwards, decreasing downwards. So these are the gradations of nature. How do you want to divide these gradations? It's up to you. Because it's not a staircase, but it's a ramp. Okay? So, in each status of gradations of nature, the spirit takes a poise of its being proper to that gradation. In mind nature, it becomes a mental being. Then, in life nature, it becomes a vital being. In nature of matter, it becomes a physical being. It has lost its consciousness. It becomes physical being. This is what he's saying. That by choice, it is limiting its own consciousness. In matter, Purusha is the subtle physical. It is sleeping. By choice. Why? Again, that's another question. That Leela, that adventure it's having with itself. Okay. So, in life, it becomes the vital being. In mind, it becomes the mental being. In the higher mind, it becomes the self, etc., until finally at the highest level, it becomes master of itself. Okay, so in nature, matter, it becomes the physical being. In supermind, it becomes the being of knowledge. In the supreme spiritual status, it becomes the being of bliss and pure existence. So, he has made a slight difference between the supermind and there are higher levels. If you remember the 7 planes of consciousness, Sat, Chit, Shakti, Ananda. Then supermind. Then mind, life, body. So, at the higher level, Ananda is supposed to be, Ananda and existence are supposed to be the highest. Supermind is not the highest. It's a link between the two. Okay? So, in the supreme spiritual, it becomes a being of bliss and pure existence. In us, in the embodied individual, it stands behind all as the psychic entity. So when it is there, the divine element can become the psychic entity. The inner self, supporting the other formulations of our consciousness and spiritual existence. It is supporting. Just like a parent supports his own child. Okay? Supporting the other formulations of our consciousness and spiritual experience. The Purusha, individual in us, is cosmic in the cosmos, transcendent in the transcendence. Very clear statement. The Purusha is individual at our level, your psychic being. In the spiritual planes of consciousness, it becomes the self, which is cosmic. You have the cosmic consciousness. And at the highest level, it becomes transcendent. It seems to be outside the universe. So, the being can stand outside the universe. It can be in the universe and become the universe. And it can become the individual. All these things are possible to the spirit. Brahman, Purusha, Ishvara, Maya, Prakriti, Shakti. Okay. So, the Purusha, individual in us, is cosmic in the cosmos, transcendent in the transcendence. The identity with the self is apparent, but it is the self in its pure impersonal status, impersonal personal status in the supermind of a spirit in things and beings. So, it is there in things as well as beings, but there it is sleeping. Impersonal because undifferentiated by personal quality. Personal because it presides over the individualizations of self in each individual, which deals with the works of its consciousness force, its executive force of self-nature, in whatever poise is necessary for that purpose. So, it can take any stand it wants. That's basically what he's saying. But it is evident that whatever the posture taken or relation formed in any individual nodus of Purusha Prakriti, the being is in a fundamental cosmic relation, lord or ruler of its nature. For even when it allows nature to have its own way with it, its consent is necessary to support her workings. This comes out in its fullest revelation in the third aspect of the reality, the divine being who is the master and creator of the universe. Here, the supreme person the being in its transcendental and cosmic consciousness and force comes to the front, omnipotent, omniscient, the controller of all energies, the conscious in all that is conscient or inconscient, the inhabitant of all souls and minds and hearts and bodies, the ruler or overruler of all works, the enjoyer of all delight, the creator who has built all things in his own being, the all person of whom all beings are personalities, the power from whom are all powers, the self, the spirit in all, by his being the father of all that is, in his consciousness force, the divine mother, friend of all creatures, the all blissful and all beautiful, of whom beauty and joy are the revelation, the all beloved and all lover. In a certain sense, so seen and understood, this becomes the most comprehensive of the aspects. In a certain sense, so seen and understood, this becomes the most comprehensive of the aspects of the reality, since here all are united in a single formulation. For the Ishvara is supracosmic as well as intracosmic. He is that which exceeds and inhabits and supports all individuality. He is the supreme and universal Brahman, the Absolute, the Supreme Self, the Supreme Purusha. There is a footnote, we'll read that later. But very clearly, this is not the personal God of popular religions, a being limited by his qualities, individual and separate from all others. For all such personal gods are only limited representations or names and divine personalities of the one Ishvara. Neither is this the Saguna Brahman, active and possessed of qualities, for that is only one side of the being of the Ishvara. The Nirguna, immobile and without qualities, is another aspect of his existence. Ishvara is Brahman, the reality, self, spirit, revealed as possessor, enjoyer of his own self-existence, creator of the universe and one with it, pantheos, and yet superior to it, the eternal, the infinite, the ineffable, the divine transcendence. So he is describing the Ishvara consciousness, their supramental consciousness. We'll go into this next time
Very good.
in detail.
Thank you, Ron. Namaste all.